So this tutorial is going to show you how I pipe Lily of the Valley. It's got this lovely height to the cupcake and loads of detail. They're very fiddly to pipe, but they look absolutely gorgeous, so it is worth the effort. I'm going to go as slow as I can for you and show you how I do it. So if you're like me and you pipe your flowers directly onto the cupcake, you want to put the rest of your design onto the cupcake first, because it will be easier to work around it this way. If you pipe onto a flower nail, you can put your Lily of the Valley on first and then you attach your flowers like you normally do. So for the stems, I use these chocolate covered biscuits. You want to break off this little bit at the bottom though. That bit goes soggy inside the cupcake, or if it's covered in buttercream. So just use the chocolate covered part of the biscuit, and I just poke it into the cake and it's in. And I've made these biscuits different sizes, and I'm just going to put 3 into this cupcake to show you. You can add as many as you like. So there's the biscuits inside the cupcake. Now the piping tips I use, this one I think is a number 10 round. It measures approximately 7 or 8 millimeters across the top. It's basically just a round piping tip that sits over the top of the biscuits, and I like it to only just cover them. For the actual flowers, I've got here a number 2 round with just some plain buttercream in it, and a number 81 with some white buttercream in it. It's this really small smile shaped tip, and it's that shape that's going to give you the shape of the flowers. I've added a little bit of white to the buttercream just to make them pop. With all minis, you're going to want your leaf piping tip. So this is the 352 bird's beak piping tip. And then just for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to add some little rosebuds. So I've got plain buttercream with a number 6 round. So now we can get piping. So make sure that you've got your piece of paper towel handy as always. Take up your larger round nozzle, and I've got some olive green buttercream in here. Push it all down to the bottom. Make sure your bag's nice and tight. And then you're just going to push the end of the piping tip right over the biscuit to the base of the cupcake. Squeeze some buttercream out so you anchor it down, and then slowly lift as you squeeze to cover the biscuit. Go slowly so you can feel the top, and when you feel the top, you just stop squeezing and come off. So go right down to the base of the cupcake and squeeze some buttercream out, and then slowly lift to cover the biscuit. Stop piping at the top and come off. And you want to do all 3 of the biscuits. If you've used a small piping tip like me and you've got some biscuit poking through, it doesn't matter. You're going to put some leaves on there anyway. Now to pipe the flowers, I start off with the number 2 round and some plain buttercream. Push it all down to the bottom of the bag and make sure it's nice and tight. And then touch the biscuit very gently with the tip of the piping tip, about halfway up. So touch, squeeze and pull out to make a really tiny little blob. And I'm going around the biscuit, spacing these out so you've got a few on there. And you do want to leave space around them because you're going to put the petals around these. Putting these little blobs on gives you a little marker of where you're going to pipe your flower, and it also gives it something to stick to. So you don't need too many, you just want enough to look like a cluster of flowers, and you can see how much space I'm giving them in between. You need to be very mindful with your piping tips when you're piping these flowers, because all sorts of things get in the way. So take up your 81 piping tip, push all your buttercream down to the bottom and tighten up your bag. Now I've made sure that I've got enough buttercream in my bag that my hand isn't right at the bottom, so I've got a lot of space to get in between these biscuits without knocking them with my hand. If you don't have too much buttercream in your bag and your hand's right at the bottom near the piping tip, it's just going to knock your other flowers. Make sure this crescent part of the tip is in the middle, because you're going to use that to pipe over these little blobs and give you the shape of the flowers. So we'll start putting these flowers on. I'm going to start in the middle, and it's very fiddly. You need to really watch what you're doing. Touch down over the blob and pull out a little petal. Now turn your cake any which way you can, and I'm going to pipe 3 petals around each of these little blobs. So you're making a little flower around each one. So touch, little squeeze and pull it over and come off. And you'll see here, I'm going to turn the cake any which way I can to get these petals on without knocking the other biscuits and without knocking my flower that I've already put on. Fiddly, but worth it. So just gently touch down on the biscuit, squeeze and pull out a small petal over that little blob. You can see why I leave enough room at the end of the piping bag where the tip is, so that my hand isn't too far down the bottom. If my hand was too far down the bottom, you just would knock everything with your fingers and it would be a nightmare. So touch down gently on the biscuit, squeeze and pull out a little petal around that little stamen. Just keep going round, being really mindful of your other biscuits and the flour on your cupcake, if you've got one. And cover all of these little blobs. And you can see I'm gently turning the cupcake at any angle I can to get to them. And I'm turning my piping hand as well. As long as you've got your tip at the right angle with that little crescent shape in the middle, so you're going over and around your stamen, you'll create these little flower shapes. And you only need 3 petals around it to cover it. And then the last one here, so touch, squeeze and pull out. Touch, squeeze, pull out. If you're piping the rest of your design onto a flower now and putting it onto the cake with the little lifter scissors, obviously you won't have that flower in the way. I pipe everything straight onto the cupcake, and I find if you put the flower on first, it's a lot easier to work around it. Last ones. So there's all your flowers on. Now, just for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to fill in the gaps here, but any design that you want, you'll have that on your cake already. So I'm just going to put some little green blobs in here with the piping tips that I've already got. And then we'll put some little dots on there. Obviously this bit's not essential, I just want to show you the finished cake. That'll do. And then I'm going to put some rosebuds in here. So I've got a number 6 round. You just touch down, squeeze and lift to make a little cone shape. And you can make them all different sizes. And these are a really good handy filler if you're stuck for ideas and you've got a gap. If you've done roses or any other flowers with buds really, you can add those little cones. And then take up your 352 leaf tip, so it's your bird's beak. So you want to point where you want your leaves to be. And we'll do all sorts of angles here. So make sure your bag is nice and tight. And I'll just start off piping some leaves around these coverings here. You can see I pipe a leaf and I pull it up over that cone. And it makes it look like a little rosebud. They're one of my favourite little fillers, these. And then you can see I turned the 352 leaf tip whichever way works for me. As long as you've got the angle of it right, you'll get a pointy leaf. Alright, that's that done. So Lily of the Valley leaves are quite tall. So touch down with your tip and pipe a good base so that you can pull the leaves up quite tall. And I'm coming round about halfway, just over, up that biscuit. It makes a really lovely contrast as well when the flowers are popping against the leaves. It's a gorgeous look. So there you go, that's how I pipe Lily of the Valley.